Thanks for joining me on this journey of joy, grief, and authenticity. My name is Hilarie Houghton, and in this episode, I want to talk about a term that I've just become more familiar with lately called empathy fatigue. So I should first start with a disclaimer that I'm not an expert on this. I happened to read an article that I thought was really interesting because I was looking into this just from my own things that I'm dealing with, and empathy fatigue just came out and I couldn't ignore it. So this has been fascinating to me, the idea of empathy fatigue. And the more I read about it, the more I learned that people in certain professions are more likely to experience this. And this will make a lot of sense to you. Nurses and doctors and police officers and social workers and religious leaders, they are all people who are with others during the most difficult times in their life, and that can be exhausting to constantly be hurting on behalf of somebody else and experiencing these moments. I've got friends who are nurses and religious leaders and police officers and serving others in really critical times, and so I could definitely see how exhausting that might be. I also found it interesting that not all empathy is created equal. There are actually different types of empathy, and I didn't know this until more recently, but there's cognitive empathy, and that means you're looking at things a little bit from a distance. You can identify with the situation and empathize. And then there's emotional empathy, and that is the other extreme, where you are so invested and so worried about this person that you take on that stress. And then there's some place in the middle, which is compassionate empathy. And that's where you can definitely get into and believe what they're going through, but at the same time, you're far enough away that you're able to come up with some ideas and help problem solve, and you are ready to take on the challenge. Emotional empathy, that's the one that'll get you. That's the one that they're finding empathy isn't always so healthy for you. Because with emotional empathy, you begin to take on that stress and you get so involved that your body actually reacts to it as if you were going through that stressful situation. I find this fascinating because your body is now constantly activating that stress hormone, cortisol, and so it's constantly feeling the pain and the negative effects of stress, even though you're not in a stressful situation. And that's difficult on your health, especially because it becomes ongoing, and stress, we know, is bad for our bodies. So to be taking on somebody else's stress unnecessarily is something to watch out for. It can happen. So for me, I'm trying to find a place, that little sweet spot in the middle with that compassionate empathy where I can look at someone's situation and empathize and try to help and show support. But I myself am not feeling like the victim. It's hard. I mean, a lot of times we just want to fix things for people, right? We just want them to not be hurting, and in a way we feel a responsibility sometimes to hurt with them, and there's such a fine line. It's hard. So obviously there is a fine line between supporting somebody and going down with the ship. And so for me personally, I've found this challenge as I've launched this vlog. I so publicly am trying to tell people that we can empathize together, we can support each other, and at the same time I've been so unprepared to support other people. And it's embarrassing to say, honestly, just how emotionally spent I felt on some days, and yet I've put myself out there to hopefully be a resource to people, and yet I'm fatigued myself. And I hate to even say that out loud because I wouldn't want anybody to not come to me, and I want to create a safe place for people. So really, you have to know your limitations, and you have to set emotional boundaries for yourself. And I'm really bad at that because I obviously put my heart on my sleeve. I tell the world everything, and it's hard sometimes to know where to stop. And I also want to help people, and that's a great thing. But you also have to be sensible about what you're capable of doing for others. They've actually had a study come out that has confirmed that sadness is contagious. And that's kind of a big deal. I've been feeling a little bit convicted of that because I've been putting my sadness on display for others, and to think that that is contagious is something I'm thinking seriously about, because I also want to bring joy to people's lives. And at the same time, I think joy is contagious. So I'm actually going to do an episode on that because I like that one. That's where I want to go with things. So obviously we all need to know our own limitations, right? We really need to know what can we handle and what are our emotional boundaries, and set those boundaries and stick with them so that we can help ourselves, obviously, before we're able to help other people. I recently heard Jen Johnson from Bethel Church talk about this imagery of handing your worries and your the sadness, even the sadness of others that you might be carrying, and handing it over to God, like visually in your mind. And I really liked that, and have even been trying to come up with that exact visual in my head that really works for me, to actually not carry my concerns and not carry the concerns of others, but give them to God. Really quick, I just want to thank the people in my life who I'm sure have empathy fatigue from taking care of me and supporting me throughout the last few months. And I can think of a lot of people off the top of my head who have been so consistently supportive of me, and have hurt with me really, really well, and have loved me really, really well. And I just want you to know that I appreciate it, and I want to give you permission to take care of yourself. So thank you guys. Love you. Thanks for joining me again this week on my journey of joy, grief, and authenticity. I hope this conversation around empathy fatigue was maybe eye-opening for some of you, maybe helped you do a little self-check, and definitely set up boundaries for yourself and keep them. And if you'd like to follow future episodes, you can always click the subscribe button below. And as always, don't forget that too much of a good thing, even empathy, too much of a good thing can be bad for you. So just keep that in mind, and everything in moderation.